Well, greetings and welcome to this channel. To all the new viewers, I say welcome, and to the old, my own subscribers, I say thank you for joining me once again. Today, I have a very, can say, extraordinary testimony to share of someone, a musician, that died, or rather, did not exactly die, but he had a strange experience where he was taken to heaven, and what he was shown there will blow your mind. And it changed my perspective of how I walk my Christian walk. And also, I'm hoping that it will also change your perspective as well. I quite believe this story because I have watched multiple stories of people who go to heaven, and the similarities they are striking. But what is striking about this one is that it it brought out the issue that every second of your life is being recorded, even right now as we speak. Everything that you have ever done, every thought that you have ever had, even the smallest detail is being recorded by angels. There are angels that are tasked with doing just that. So that is why we need to be intentional about how we live our lives and how we should be a blessing to people that we encounter. And how when we give, we need to give with a heart that is genuine, right? Which makes sense now because Apostle Paul also says that you should give not under compulsion, but give with your whole heart. That is what matters. So without wasting much of your time, I'm just going to go over there and show you a bit of the testimony. If you want the full testimony, you will find it in the description. I'm just going to share this snippet that I think will help somebody.
I see a huge door in front of me. After seeing all these other books, I see a huge door in front of me, and in that moment, I felt this dread and this sense of reality that I am in heaven, and all these people that are going up and down, they're angels writing the books of people, but I'm not supposed to be here. And I could see the faces of the angels that were looking at me. They gave me that look of, you're not supposed to be in this particular section of heaven. You're not supposed to be here. This is a place where the books are written and things like that. So I kneeled down and I just started crying. I don't know why I was crying, but I just started crying. And there's a huge, tall man, an angel, standing guarding the entrance to the room where I'm facing, and I'm kneeling down. And I just started to have this sense of praying to say, I hope I get a chance to plead my case so that I go back. And in that moment, a man appears to my left. He walks up, appears to my left. I was facing down, so I looked and I could see a white garment. And the man says to the angel, "Let Tatenda through." The angel says, "But no, his time is up. His things are already prepared. His books are already prepared." And the man says, "You have to let him through because his case is a special case." So I look up because there's such a sense of authority in the voice of this man. I look up and I look, and I could tell this is Jesus. I could tell, like, immediately I saw him and I said, this is Jesus. He had a white headpiece and a white garment with embroideries on the edges. Even the headpiece had embroideries on the edges. He had a big book on his left that he was holding like this, and I perceived this was people that were coming. It looked as if he is the one who had brought me into this section, and he had just left me there to then continue on my own. He had other things to address, and he said, "Let Atenda through. His case is different." So the angel lets me through. I go through the entrance, and I get into this very nice office hall like, and there was a glory in that place that I cannot describe, a presence that was in that place, and angelic activity. For the first time, I could then see angels that can fly, and they were flying behind the throne that was there. So there was a throne It's bright, it's shining, there's so much light there. And there are angels going up and down behind the throne. There's also angels that are arranging, because in that room there was bookshelves to the left, to the right. But unlike the first hall that I was in that room, the bookshelves went all the way up, and I couldn't see where the last shelf was. So I knew, and there was a man sitting on the throne, glory coming from him, and I could not make out his face. I could not describe it. I couldn't. It's just a glory. Just like the face of the man that I saw in the previous room, the face of Christ, I could not make it out. It was just a glory. And in the same way, the face of the man I saw, and it was glory. And I would love to believe that that was God. The glory was so immense that I couldn't look. So I just face down, and I just start crying. The presence in that place was so amazing. So I start crying, and as I'm crying, I'm looking to my right. On the floor, there is a pile of books, and I can tell these are the books of my life. So because of the knowledge that you get when you get to heaven, you know everything that's going on. So I knew the books, and I knew that book has this. I mean, these books have everything you've ever done. I mean, everything I've ever done. Every movie I've ever watched, every song I've ever listened to, everyone I've ever loved, everyone I've ever scolded, every lust I've ever had, everything, every thought, every offering, every time I went to church, they were in various books, but they were piled up right to my right hand side. And my deal was now, okay, so I think I'm here to plead my case, so that I'm given another chance. But I could not find the words to say. It was such a scary moment, because I started to remember things that I didn't do for God. And so I was so afraid of pleading my case that I just started crying and saying, please forgive me. Please give me another chance. And I cried so loud that it drew the attention of the Father. And the Father walked up to me, and still a glory that I couldn't make out. And he says, what do you want? I could not find the words to say. So a man appears to my right. And this man is full of love, full of... He holds my shoulder and assures me that he's going to plead my case. I look at him and I can't make out his face. Again, just like the Jesus when I saw him in the first room, just like the Father, this man, I can't make out his face. It's a glory. And in a split second, we communicate about my life. He knows everything, and he says, I'm going to plead your case. And then he says to God, Tatenda still needs more time. He has so many music assignments that he needs to fulfill. And God replies and says, but why do you need more time? Didn't you have enough time as a musician to fulfill the tasks that I gave you? I can't reply. So the Holy Spirit says, no, Tatenda only started music recently. He's been at school. He's been all that. And then the Father says, Tatenda's been doing music for 16 years. And God goes to the shelves, takes a huge book, and comes with it right in front of me. And it's got my name on it. But it is different from any other book that I saw previously. It felt like a book of remembrance. And in that book, there are only 3 pages written. It was this thick of a book, but there are only 3 pages written. And the reason why it's so thick is because it's like the book that I'm supposed to fulfill before I go. And there are only 3 pages. And in those 3 pages, the 3 pages that are written things that I did for God with their heart. So the shocking thing when I saw the book is, in that book, there were offerings that I gave to church, tithes that I gave, conferences that I attended. But it's not all of them that were in that book. And I could actually tell the offerings that made it into that book are the offerings I really gave out of my desire to fulfill God's work. But there are other offerings that I actually gave, even huge figures. They were not in that book. They were in the pile of books that was to my right. In that book, I saw some of the songs that I wrote for Fig Worship Culture. I think 2 of them, they were in that book. The others were not there. There was conferences that I attended. There were cables that I repaired for church, But some of the other Sunday services where I sang and worshipped and ministered, they were not written in that book. They were in the pile of books that were there. And time moves differently in heaven. And I think it's the Adam type of knowledge as well, where you know everything that's happening. You have super intelligence in that place. So I then began to fear for myself, because I knew the number of things that I did for God with a whole heart. They're so few, they can only fill 3 pages in a book of 1,000 pages. So I start crying. I lament, I cry, and the Holy Spirit pleads my case again. So I'm thinking 16 years, God says I've been doing music for 16 years. And yeah, when I now think of it now, is 16 years ago, I was in Form 1. And that's the first time I learned harmonies from Simba Maguri. So it all tallies up, So the Holy Spirit then says, he starts pleading my case as if he's a lawyer with the most, even the smallest of things. He then says, the economy in Zimbabwe is so difficult. You might not understand what it is to be man, but it's not that he doesn't want to work for you or fulfill your tasks. It's just that he's doing things to get money at the moment so that he can live. But if he had the money, he would have done your will a long time ago. And that was infuriating to God. That was his point of saying, why have you just been chasing money? Why haven't you been chasing my will? So in that moment, I start to think, so what exactly is God's will upon my life? And that's when I remember my father told me to write a hymn book. And I'm thinking in that moment, please, I hope he doesn't, go to the hymn book thing. So in that moment, God goes to the shelf and says, I want Tatenda to see how far behind he is. So he goes to the shelf, brings out a book just like mine, but it's written David. And I knew this is the book of David. It seemed old, been in that shelf for a long time. And in that book, there are so many things that it did, so many things that didn't even make it to the Bible. And in that book, there is also another book at the end, which is the book of Psalms, which is his hymn book. And there are other songs that were in that book of Psalms that didn't make it to the Bible. I could actually tell this song is not in the Bible. And God says, this is the life of David. He lived and he fulfilled my work, and he left this book of songs in the world. And then God brings out another book, and it's my book, and it's empty. It's a hymn book, and it's empty, and it's written Tatenda. It's supposed to be a hymn book that I'm supposed to write, but it's empty. It doesn't even have any song. And God was angry, saying, why hasn't he written at least even one song for the 16 years that he's been there? Why hasn't he been writing songs for the hymn book? And God asks a critical question: what makes us sure? So he says, what makes us? So that's when I realized this was the Holy Spirit. This man who was pleading my case was the Holy Spirit, because when the final question then came, God says, what makes us sure that when we put him back, he will fulfill the tasks that I've assigned for him? And in that moment, I went blank, and the Holy Spirit did not say anything, and I started crying. I've never cried like that.
Thank you so much for watching. I'm just going to end here for now, and I want to know your thoughts on this, because it's really interesting that the God yet were there in heaven together, and one is the Father, then there's Jesus Christ, then there's the Holy Spirit. And the Bible talks of the Holy Spirit as making intercessions for us believers. So he's God, but he makes intercessions for us. So it shows that you have someone who is rooting for you if you're a believer. And that someone is the Holy Spirit, which is why we don't need to grieve the Holy Spirit. But another interesting point that came out of that is that there is interaction between God the Father, Christ, and the Holy Spirit. They are together as God, but we have a representative there. But what came out also for me is the issue of the book of remembrance. That is a book where things that you did with a heart for God are recorded. And in that book, we should make sure that your name is also recorded in that book. I just want to leave you with this question: what will be in your book of remembrance? So yeah, as I go, please, I entreat you to like, share, comment, and subscribe to this channel. And may God bless you.